What's up? It's Willie McGinnis, three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots, and I'm hanging out with my man Chris Palme, okay? Chris does a podcast, 30 Minutes Live with CDP Podcast, every Wednesday and Friday night on Twitter, Facebook, and his YouTube channel. Make sure everybody tunes in, okay, to my man Chris Palme's podcast. Again, it's every Wednesday and Friday night on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Make sure you guys check him out.
Hey, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Live with CDP podcast on this Wednesday, December 1st. I had to check my watch again, but Wednesday, December 1st. I'm looking forward to my podcast today with Howard Simon, the longtime co-host of Howard and Jeremy on WGR 550 in Buffalo, Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And Howard's also a huge New York Mets fan. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bills with him, maybe a preview with the Patriots game, and also maybe a little Sabres hockey and what's going on with his New York Mets. So if you guys can just give me a minute, I will bring on Howard Simon from WJR right now. Good afternoon, Howard. How you doing?
Good, Chris. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Yeah, and sometimes with technology, things do happen. So I always try to be prepared.
So we're using this with the phone, which is the crazy angle on the camera. I apologize, but you're dealing with someone who can listen in on Zoom and StreamYard, but I can't figure out how to get my mic to work. So you're stuck with the old way, the phone way.
That's okay too. I've had a few other guys come on with their phones too. So like I said, I'm just looking forward to speaking to you as well. Are you okay with about 35, 40 minutes?
Sure.
Time-wise? Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to start off with the Bills, obviously, because they got the biggest game of the year coming up on Monday Night Football against their rivals that are back from the dead, the New England Patriots. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this matchup this Monday night at Highmark Stadium.
It's a huge game. Obviously it's critical for the Bills in terms of their division. I don't think a lot of us thought this game would be that important at this point in the schedule, but New England's playing a lot better than I anticipated. So it is a very big contest. I mean, the Bills need to play more consistent football. They've been a roller coaster ride. Obviously, they're in second, so they need this to get back into first place, and let alone a one seed discussion at some point, hopefully. But they need to show that they're better than New England, and beat the Patriots head to head is one way to do that. It's a really big game, because if you lose this, you have to split with New England. Really, realistically, I think, to win the division. You're playing Tampa after this. That's a really tough game, especially with no Trey White. So if they don't win this one Monday night, they're in for some tough sledding, and they really have to win in Foxborough later this season.
I was going to say, and Josh Allen's still having a pretty good season, but his last 6 games, he's thrown, I think, 8 interceptions, and the New England Patriots have a ball hawking defense. That's my biggest concern if I was a Bills fans, is the turnovers.
Yeah, and it's not all on him. Brian Dale was asked about that on his Zoom call this week, and he was asked a few different things, and a couple times he came back to whatever it was, 8 turnovers in the last 4 games, whatever the number was that he cited, and he said something to the effect of, if you think those are all on Josh Allen, you're wrong. So there are other issues. It's not just he's made some head scratching decisions. I thought he has played well for the most part, but yeah, the last few games, if you look at the biggest problem in this up and down stretch where they've had, the Jacksonville game, for example, and some of their offensive struggles, even at points the Indy game, there are times where they're moving the ball and they're stopping themselves, whether it was penalties on offense or turnovers, could be fumbles, not just Josh throwing an interception. There are just, they seem to be more self-inflicted wounds than anything. So if they clean up that part of their game, you're right, New England does take the ball away very well. But if they clean up that part of the game, I think that'll help get the production back up, because their TD percentage, their points per drive percentage, that stuff's gone down a little bit. And I think it's more about what's happening to them, what they're doing, rather than what opponents are doing to them.
I was going to say, the Patriots have been winning a lot of games, but a lot of their opponents haven't been playing good football. And obviously the Titans have had some key injuries as well. What's the status on the Bills for this game for Monday night health-wise?
Well, hopefully they get some key guys back. We'll see. The good news was about Star Lotulelei and Spencer Brown coming off the COVID list, so that's good. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to play Monday. just means they're back and they're practicing. What shape are they in? They've been out for a couple weeks, unable to practice. I guess this is now a good thing where you have the game on Monday, not on Sunday. It gives you an extra day. So hopefully these guys will be okay to play, if not full-time. Star wouldn't be on the field, obviously, for every snap. But hopefully they'll both be okay to play Monday night because it's big. You want Star out there for the run defense. But I also think he's done a really good job pushing the pocket in the pass rush too. So you'd like to have him back. You need some stoutness up front on your line. And Spencer Brown, as a rookie, has been a revelation. He's really come in and done a great job at right tackle. And I think that would solve two problems. One, it looks like Darrell Williams is struggling at right tackle. He's probably better suited at guard at this point. So you could put him back at guard. You put Brown back at right tackle. And one of the key guys you got to stop in this game is Matthew Judon. He has been a great pickup for New England. He is wrecking offenses. He's sacking quarterbacks. He's getting pressures. You'd like to have Spencer Brown, I think, out there as opposed to Darrell Williams to try and handle Judon when he lines up on that side. And then the other guy is Feliciano, too. He's practicing. He's not off IR yet. But if you get him back, Chris, then you're looking at what they think are the 5 best guys to have on the offensive line. And for this game against that front, that would be really important for the Bills.
I really think this game's going to come down to the lines, the O-line and the D-lines as well.
Yeah, and their O-line's playing well. That's why I say I think it's important if you could get Star back, or maybe, we were talking about this a little bit today, depending on whether Star plays or not. The Bills put Bryant and Anku in the lineup the other day, and that gave him a little more size and physicality. I thought it was interesting how Leslie Frazier on his Zoom call, when he was asked about those guys, brought up size and physicality, and that's not something the Bills had a lot on the defensive line. If you put Obata or Basham at times inside, they're not the biggest guys in the world, obviously. You'd like to have some 300-plus pounders in there. So I think the line play is always important, right? But in terms of how you're going to be able to defend New England and maybe stopping the run, I wonder if the Bills will look to keep some beef in the middle of the defensive line. And it's maybe more about that as opposed to, what you're getting out of your edge rushers, because, I think Mac Jones has done a pretty good job of avoiding sacks. He's pretty good at getting the ball out quickly, decisively. They don't make him stand in the pocket very long. So sacks probably not happening, hopefully pressures, but I think the interior of that line is something to keep an eye on for Monday night.
Oh, I think crowd noise too might be a factor too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Jeremy, my partner, made a great point. Mac Jones has not had this environment in the pros. Now, he's played in noisy stadiums. He was at Alabama. So, playing at LSU and some of the places he would have played at in college, I'm sure he's played in pressure atmospheres, clutch, big games, noisy crowds on the road. He's dealt with all that. But, whatever. The NFL game, he has not, I think, experienced anything like he will experience at Highmark Stadium Monday night with 70,000 crazy Bills fans. And the pressure that comes with, they're the team on top now, right? He's getting a lot of hype right now about his season, and they're the first place team coming in. So that's a lot of pressure on a young quarterback. We'll see how he handles that situation. He has not been in that place yet.
I was also going to say, Belichick's going to take away the Bills' offensive strengths, or try to, with the receivers and stuff like that. Do you think the Bills will try to establish a running game, or do you think they'll call more plays for Allen, or maybe some broken plays for Allen to run with the ball as well?
I don't know if they would. I mean, I'm sure they're going to want to run the ball a little bit. I wouldn't expect run heavy. Now, look, if the weather forecast, there might be some snow. They're talking about maybe windy conditions, 15, 20 miles an hour, maybe gusts to 40 or 45. If it's a really windy day at the stadium, that makes it a little problematic to pass. But I would think they'll stick to their identity. Josh's legs are very important if they're going to run some design runs with him. Those are pretty successful for the Bills. Will they? I'm sure, again, I think they'll want to run the ball, but establish the run, I don't know about that. I think you'd be getting away from your true identity, and that is to throw the football. My guess is, if they're going to take away somebody, you'd think it would be Diggs at the top of their list.
Oh, yeah.
I would still throw the ball to him because J.C. Jackson's having a hell of a year, but he had trouble against Diggs last year in the game in Foxborough. So I'd still throw the ball. I'd stay true to my identity. And if they do somehow negate Diggs, well, you still got Sanders and Beasley and Knox and McKenzie. And I think the depth of your targets is better than the depth of their secondary at cornerback.
I was going to say one thing, Howard, too. The Titans' backup guys ran for over 200 yards against the Patriots' defense. So their defense is very good, but I don't think they're unbeatable. They do have some chinks in the armor.
Yeah, that was a little surprising. And I think, A, because it was backups, and B, because New England, if they didn't think it going in, but as the game is wearing on, you can see they're not having a great day throwing the football. So you would have known they're probably going to keep running, and they still couldn't stop them. The fumbles is what hurt Tennessee. They were ripping off some big run plays. Unfortunately, they were having ball security issues at the end of a couple of those big run plays. So, and I get that, and I thought about that too, Chris. If the Bills are watching that game, well, the Bills would see it on tape anyway. Are they thinking, okay, here's a weakness. Let's really try and exploit this and run the ball? But I think Tennessee's offensive line is pretty good when it comes to run blocking. The Bills have had some issues up front. I still would not expect a shift in the game plan away from throwing the football, but we'll see. If the one thing I like about Daboll, I mean, he says it, and I think he does stick to that. They do look at each opponent. What's the best way to beat them? Typically, the best way for the Bills to win the game is to throw the football. Their receivers, their tight end, their quarterback, and the passing game, it's better than their running game. If they see some reason where New England they think is extremely vulnerable to the run, yeah, I would see them try and design a few more plays that way, but I wouldn't expect it. I would think they're still going to throw the ball.
And another thing, I'm my 2 cents on this is the Patriots have a solid running game in Damian Harris, and Stevenson. If the Bills can contain those two guys and put more pressure on Jones to do it, I think that would increase the Bills' chances of winning the game because the Patriots' wide receivers don't exactly scare anybody.
No, they wouldn't, and I think they're good. Well, they're better than they were last year for sure.
Yes.
Well, Myers was around last year, but Myers is good. He's a good deep threat. Kendrick Bourne's been a nice pickup for them, so I think they've definitely upgraded their receiving core from last year, and they do have a couple nice tight ends. Hunter Henry's having a good season for them, and Jonnu Smith. At least the other day, I caught their game against the Titans, and he had a nice game against Tennessee. They were talking about maybe they're going to start working him into their passing game a little bit more. So they have good weapons, but I'm with you. I think most people look, Mac Jones has been in the position where I think we had a stat on our show today. Our producer, Corey Griswold, found this stat somewhere. It said New England's been down more than one score in only 2 games out of 12. And one of those games they come back to win. It was Houston. And that was less about Mac Jones rallying them and more about David Culley making some boneheaded coaching decisions. In the other game where they were down against New Orleans by more than one score, they lost. So Mac Jones hasn't been in the position where they've been down that often by more than 7 points, and he's had to, assuming this is what you meant, Chris, throw them back into the game. I don't know if he can do it. I hope this is the case Monday. I'd like to see the Bills build a lead because if it comes down to they stop running and they have to throw, I like the Bills' chances even better.
Definitely. I think the first quarter is going to be huge. If the Bills can get off to a good lead and get the crowd really more engaged, that might help their chances too. But I also think they can't afford to turn the ball over at all. They have to make sure they hold on to the ball or don't throw any bad interceptions or try not to anyways.
Yeah, that's, obviously you want to play as clean a football game as you can and limit your mistakes. And, as I said, it's not all Josh's fault, but the multiple interception games have not really been a problem for him for a while until this last stretch of 3 or 4 games when, things have kind of added up for those picks. So as long as they don't have, like Tennessee, Tennessee, as undermanned as they were down 3 at the half. They're in that game somehow, amazingly. And it turns out they end up losing by whatever it was, 20 points or so. They had turnovers. They turned the ball over 4 or 5 times in that game. Clearly, the Bills can't do that. New England's a really good football team. If you're gonna shorten the field for them, but more importantly, your offense is going to leave the field with no points on all of those possessions. That's not a good recipe.
And I think one of the key guys in this game is going to be Cole Beasley. I think he's going to be called upon to make those critical third down catches, and I have a feeling he's going to have a big game on Monday night against New England.
Yeah, I mean, that's wondering. He's playing hurt, right? And there have been times where his snap count has been down, and he just doesn't seem to have the role that he had last year in this offense. Again, I'm going to guess it's more about the injury than anything. He's tough to defend. We know that. Sounds like they've been playing a little more zone defensively lately for whatever reason. And we know that one of the things Cole Beasley is very good at is finding soft spots in the zone, running a few yards, sitting, turning, and he is a great target. So you're right. Maybe I think if they're going to take Diggs out, I would think that would open the door for Sanders, or maybe even Dawson Knox. Knox has had a great season, and I don't know if they put Duggar on him or what their matchup issue is with what they would decide to do with a matchup with Knox. But that's a nice thing. You mentioned Cole Beasley. There are options. If for some reason they neutralize Diggs, it is not the end of the game for the Bills. They do have other personnel that they can use. Gabriel Davis. I think a lot of fans would like to see more targets and more plays for Gabriel Davis because he's a really talented young receiver. So there would be some other options available.
What about Isaiah McKenzie? He was a scratch against the Saints. Is he going to be back on the roster? Or is he going to be back in the lineup for Monday night?
That's a good question. I would think he would. I know he had the fumble, but he's been pretty good in terms of handling the ball. He's been very good as a returner. I thought that was going to be an interesting. It could have been a big loss because I thought Andre Roberts did a great job returning, but McKenzie's been productive. I would think, I'm going to guess, that could have been just a message sent, light a fire. We're going to put the rookie in. If you go, it's such a big game. It's national TV. It's a huge game with the division rival that everybody wants to beat. I'm not sure they want a rookie like Stevenson back there handling kicks. It's going to be windy at the stadium, whether it's crazy windy or just 15 to 20 miles an hour, and that's a tricky place to deal with the winds. I'd like to have a more experienced guy back there returning punts and kicks. So if it were up to me, I would play McKenzie in this game. I wouldn't play Stevenson. And McKenzie, you want to run some jet sweeps? Great. He can get some touches for it and use his speed. If, you want another option in the passing game, or maybe Beasley is banged up and you have to watch his snaps, throw McKenzie in the slot. I would definitely play him Monday night.
Definitely. Another thing I wanted to bring up with you too on this question, Howard, I think special teams is going to be huge, especially if the weather conditions are not perfect either.
Well, their special teams are good. Both kickers are good in this game, actually. Tyler Bass, we know how strong his leg is. And, now he's had, obviously a lot of home games to get used to the swirling winds at the stadium. Nick Folk is having a great season for them. I was looking at his numbers today. He has yet to miss a kick under 50 yards. He's 26 of 26. He's 5 of 8, 50 plus. So he's been great. Their return game's pretty good. Their coverage units, we know they blocked a punt here a few years ago and returned it. So, but the Bills special teams they've been good as well. I don't think I see a really decided edge when it comes to special teams in this game. The biggest issue might be what happens to the kicking game, punting and place kicking, based on what the wind conditions are like Monday night.
You might see a few more fourth down gambles.
You might see less field goals attempted, right? Is this going to be one of those games where if you win the toss, you want to make sure you got the wind at your back in the fourth quarter, so depending on how that plays out, we'll see how it affects the punters and the kickers for this game. Maybe you do see less field goals and more fourth down attempts to keep drives going.
My prediction, it's going to be a low-scoring game.
Yeah, I don't know. You would think, right? Because the two good defenses. I don't know. I wouldn't think it would be that low-scoring. Again, we'll see. If it is low-scoring, I think it might be more about the weather conditions.
Yeah.
Then I think these are. What are they? I think they're 1-2 or 2-3 in scoring defense in the league right now. I still think that you would see. You say low-scoring. What? Both under 20?
I would say 16-10, something like that. 16-13, between 26 and 29 points.
I'm going to go higher. I would still think I think both teams will get into the 20s. I'm not sure if someone will get into the 30s, but I would think they'll get into the mid to upper 20s in this game. But again, unless there's crazy weather Monday night.
Yes, that can affect, especially in that stadium. The winds can definitely affect the punting game and the field goal game as well. So, okay. I was going to say my next question I wanted to ask you is who's been the biggest surprise on the Bills so far, and maybe somebody who's been a disappointment or just not had a good a season as they did last year.
Well, I think there's a few guys for surprises. We touched on one, Knox. I think with Dawson Knox, everybody can see the skill set. We were just looking for consistency. Obviously, the drops and everything, although he was better last year. He really improved from year one to year two. The question was, what would he do from year 2 to year 3? And he's had it's a breakout year. He's really been a great weapon in the red zone, in the passing offense in general. When he's out, that hurts the Bills offense. So I think Knox isn't a surprise because we knew he had the ability, Chris, but he's hit another level, a more consistent level in his game this season. There's no way. I thought we were going to get to the middle of the season and talk about how critical it was that Spencer Brown did not miss a game. I didn't think this guy would play, barring injury. A rookie tackle would play this season, but he's become a really important part. He's played extremely well at a tough position for a rookie, and when he was out, it hurt the line. So I think he's been a big surprise. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of who else. Maybe I was going to say maybe Ed Oliver, but again, it's kind of like Knox. Oliver was talented, but now you're seeing consistency from him, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing the play, the flash plays or the big moments more often in football games. I think he was tremendous against New Orleans. He's been really good against the run. He's been shedding blockers. He's been creating pressure and helping out with the pass rush. I think he's had the season that people said this kid really needed to have to help this defense. So I think he's been good. Disappointments, I guess if I had to come up with one, maybe Deion Dawkins. And I don't know if this all goes back to COVID, and the bout he had with COVID was serious back in the summer. When he came back, he talked about how there were days he thought he wasn't going to make it, and he lost a lot of weight and he missed a lot of time. And I don't know if that sets you back, Chris. And if you miss all that time in camp and prep and you lose the weight, maybe it can still affect you down the road because he's struggling, with blocking. He's had some penalties, and that's not Deion Dawkins. This guy is a really good offensive lineman. So, but something's a little bit off in his game. So I guess that would be, in terms of the disappointments, I guess that would be one name I would throw out there.
Okay. One thing I forgot to ask you, Travarius White is gone for the year, and that's a huge loss. Who's going to fill in for him for the rest of the year in his position?
Well, right now it's going to be Dane Jackson, based on what Leslie Frazier was saying on Monday. And we'll see how it plays out. I don't know that in this game it's that big a deal. Like you said earlier, you wouldn't look at the receivers for New England and go, boy, they're screwed if he has to stop fill in the blank guy. Again, they're good receivers, but this is not Tampa. Like when they play Tampa and we're sitting here going, oh my, Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson. Now, granted, they play zone more than man, but Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, maybe Antonio Brown, whoever you want to throw in there. That's a tough matchup for those guys. So I don't think it's as big a deal in this game, but Dane Jackson will be the guy. And look, at a very limited sample size, he's played well. Last season he was moved into the starting lineup for a little bit. He handled himself well. He seemed to show the ability to cover guys, good ball recognition, plays physical enough, can help out in the run stops. So, there's no way you're going to replace Trey White. Dane Jackson isn't Trey White. Levi Wallace isn't Trey White. So it's a big loss for the Bills. But the security blanket is also you have one of the best, if not the best, safety tandem in the National Football League to help out these cornerbacks in Poyer and Hyde.
Definitely. I have a gut feeling in the first quarter. I think McDaniel and Belichick might try to exploit White being out early in the game and see if they can get some big plays against Dane Jackson, like you said he was filling in.
I would. I mean, it makes sense. Again, they don't necessarily play a lot of man, but you would think you would be throwing, you would throw his way. Levi Wallace has done pretty well this season. I know sometimes he gets a little flack because he has these stretches where you think, maybe he's having some problems, but I think Levi has done a good job. Now he's thrust into a higher role. He's the number one cornerback now. But yeah, I would expect, you would throw, why wouldn't you? You would test Dane Jackson to see what the kid's got and see if he's up to the task.
Okay. And that leads to my next question. So far this season, after 11 games, the Bills are 7-4. What is your biggest concern as a fan and a radio personality, a media, covering this 2021 Bills team so far?
I think the consistency. It's just been a weird team. When they win, they blow teams out. When they lose, with the exception of the Colts game, they lose close games. There is, the Pittsburgh loss in week 1, the Jacksonville loss, of course, will come to mind. I wouldn't have been shocked that they lost to the Colts, but they got thoroughly dominated in that game. But if you look at the last 7 games now, I think this goes back to the Tennessee. I think it started with Kansas City, Tennessee. I think it's the last 7 games. They've gone win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, with New Orleans being the last game. Where's the consistency? This team has been, somewhat of a roller coaster ride. And that's not what I expected. You think about like last year's team, they had that Hail Mary loss. They came out of the bye. And man, they went on a roll. They never lost again until the AFC Championship. And they really played tremendous football. This team has not had the ability to put together that many complete games. The Jets game, the Saints game, say what you want, the Jets are really bad. The Saints were depleted by injuries. But how often does that happen? Even in some of the wins, the second Miami win, not a good first half, a better second half. The Jacksonville game was a disaster. The Colts game was a disaster. So I need to see them play more complete football and be more consistent because, obviously there's a lot on the line. It's not out of the question. I mean, look at the standings right now that we're sitting here the rest of this month talking about whether or not, if they don't win Monday, we're talking about, can they hold people off for a wild card spot? And I never thought we'd be having that discussion.
And that leads to another question I wanted to ask you. Obviously, the expectations. Do you think the expectations and maybe the headlines were getting to these guys in the offseason about how great they are? And I just was wondering about that.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know that. I really don't. They're only human. So it's not out of the question. They're sure professional athletes, focus, all that stuff. I get it, but they're human beings. If they hear all the stuff that's being said and people keep patting them on the back, and I guess it can affect maybe your focus and your preparation. That would fall to the coaching staff to try and make sure these guys don't get caught up in the press clipping, so to speak. Maybe, Chris, that could be it. I think there are other issues that I would explain the inconsistencies and the roller coaster stuff, but it's not out of the question that, I don't know how you lose to Jacksonville. I mean, sure, the first thing you would think of is they go in there thinking, all right, guys, let's just show up. We throw the balls out on the field. We're going to beat the Jaguars. But even if you thought that, wouldn't you have waken up at, coming out of halftime and found a way to play 30 good minutes and win the game like they did against Miami here? So I don't know. It's possible. It might be happening, but I tend to believe that's not the main reason as to what's going on this season.
Well, like you said, the consistency. You're right about the consistency, and now's the time they need to put this together because there's only 5-6 games left, and then hopefully the playoffs. And the AFC, Howard, as you know, is all bunched up right now. There's at least 4 or 5 teams that could get that number 1 seed.
Well, that's why, I know I haven't been thinking about the 1 seed. I know there are Bills fans that are still thinking about the 1 seed. Maybe, we had a big discussion last week. Are you rooting for Tennessee or New England? And there were a lot of Bills fans who were saying they were rooting for New England because they want the 1 seed in play. And they figured the Bills are playing New England twice. They control their own destiny, beat New England. And I get that. But because of, like you said, if they don't win the division, there's a lot of teams in that wild card race. There are a lot of teams in that 4-loss, 5-loss. You want to throw in, I mean, the Colts are in the 6-loss group. In that 4 to 6 losses, and the Bills would lose a tiebreaker to the Colts, there's a lot of teams in contention there. In the hunt includes almost everybody in the conference at this point. So it's that's why I think, the Monday night game is really huge, because if they can't win the division and you're now fighting for the 5, 6, 7 spot, there are a number of teams you're going to be dealing with. And I guess the good news, one of them is Tennessee would probably win their division. You would lose a tiebreaker to them. If it's Indy, you lose a tiebreaker to them. And the Bills conference record right now, which is after head-to-head for the wild card, the conference record, a 2-team wild card tie, the conference record is the next tiebreaker. The Bills conference record is not good. They've got 4 AFC losses already. Now, if you lose to New England, that's 5. You really don't want to be worse than 7-5 in the AFC for tiebreaker purposes. So again, you're getting on thin ice here if they don't win Monday night for a number of reasons.
And that leads to my next question, Howard, too. This one, just a simple yes or no.
Josh... You're going to ask a talk show host to answer a question with 1 word.
Okay.
Yes or... All right, I'll do my best. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. Yes or no. Do you believe Josh Allen has regressed this year? And is he feeling maybe a little more pressure with the monster contract that he signed in the offseason to perform as well as he did in 2020?
No, and maybe. You said only 1 word. I used 3.
Okay. Okay,
I don't think he's regressed. And again, I think it would be natural to assume a guy gets that contract and you feel pressure to produce in any sport. Max Scherzer's getting $40 million a year from the Mets. You're going to tell me he doesn't, he won't feel the pressure, especially in New York, to have to go out and win every start next year, which of course he's not going to do. So it's only natural, for Josh to, I'm not saying they think about the contract when the game is going on, but he's the franchise quarterback. The bar has been raised. He's in MVP discussions on a Super Bowl contender, and you're the guy that they invested all that money in. Yeah, sure, that puts pressure on him. And I think maybe I don't know if it directly leads to he's forcing a throw in a game because of a big contract. I doubt it. I think he believes he can make plays, and he throws the ball when he thinks he can make a good play for his team, and sometimes it doesn't work. But that's got to be, I would think that'd be natural to have to feel the pressure or the weight of some expectations when you get such a big contract.
Because his numbers aren't exactly the same as last year, but they're pretty similar. But I guess just because he's thrown a few more interceptions. But you're right. People always blame the quarterback on interceptions, but the receivers or tight ends can run the wrong route,
Right.
or a pass can get tipped it, or a player on the opposition team can make a great play too. So I guess you can't always just look at the number and say, oh, he's throwing bad interceptions. You got to look at all the interceptions and the plays, like how it happened there.
Yeah, I think he's playing well. I think he's having a good season. If it gets maybe somewhat to the discussion of the running game. Have they put too much on Josh Allen's shoulders? I mean, he really does. Obviously, the quarterback is the main point of the offense, but because they don't run the ball a lot. When they do run the ball, it's been okay. At times not great. He's a good part of the running game, obviously. So maybe there's a little too much on him. I think he can handle it, and I do think he's having a good season. And his numbers are they're around where they were last year in some statistical categories, depending on what you check. Some of his numbers are better than last season. And they're still one of the higher scoring teams in the league. If there is one difference, it's he's throwing more interceptions.
Are they going to carry three backs in this game, or are they just going to go back to Singletary and Matt Breida?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I think it would depend on their game plan. I think it would depend on, I hope Breida's dressed. I'm sure Singletary will be. The question, I think, is Zach Moss, whether Zach Moss is active or not. And that can depend on game plan, could depend on weather forecast, how much they want to run the ball. It could depend on if you're going to activate Moss, where else you're taking one guy out. What position do you now look at and go, okay, we're going to go one shorter at this spot because we're going to go longer at running back because they're going to have Taiwan Jones would be active. And assuming Reggie Gilliam is healthy, he'd be active. So that's 5 backs. It's a lot of backs to have active for a game for a team that really doesn't run the ball that much. So I'm not sure what's going to happen Monday night. I wouldn't be surprised if Moss is inactive again and they just roll the dice with Singletary and Breida.
Okay. Last Bills question, and then we'll just a couple of Sabres questions, and then I just wanted to end the podcast with your New York Mets, because I know you're a huge Mets fan too. This one I'm just going to wrap up for the Bills. Thoughts on Sean McDermott and the coaching staff so far, and Brandon Beane, and in the offseason, what do you feel the Bills should look to address with this roster for 2022?
Yeah, I think they've been fine. I don't have any major bones to pick with the coaching staff. I think some fans have been unhappy with Brian Daboll. I don't know that anybody's really called about Leslie Frazier on the defensive side, but I think some fans have been unhappy with Brian Daboll. Some want him to run the ball more. I think it's more of if I had any question, it's a personnel usage. Why did they wait so long to use Breida? Although, geez, the same thing happened in Miami. When the Dolphins signed him, I thought, that's a nice pickup. He can help your running game, and they never used him. And he comes here, and we look at it and go, all right, that's he's got some speed that Singletary and Moss wouldn't bring to the equation. So use him. And they don't. And then they finally put him in for the last couple of weeks, and he's been productive. So that Gabriel Davis seems to have a diminished role. Maybe, are they married to the 11 personnel too much? I think there have been some moments where you might talk about formations or player usage and snap counts. But outside of that, I think the coaching staff has been fine. With Beane, geez, Chris, I guess, it's so hard to predict injuries, but cornerback was an area where we thought going into the season, they didn't bring in a veteran guy for competition. It was Levi Wallace against Dane Jackson. Levi wins the competition, and they still didn't feel the need to bring in veteran depth at cornerback. Hopefully that doesn't come back to haunt them now. That's probably I don't know, maybe, I was going to say maybe some offensive line stuff. But again, how much can you plan for COVID issues or injury issues? You don't know what the future is going to hold. So I think Beane's done a good enough job with the roster. I haven't thought honestly much about next season. I'm pretty sure they're going to address wide receiver because Sanders is on a 1-year deal. Beasley's got 1 year left. And with his body breaking down, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they walk away from his contract with 1 year left. McKenzie's on a 1-year deal. So you got Diggs, you got Davis. Who knows what they think of Isaiah Hodgins, Kumaro. They have to address wide receiver in the offseason. I'm sure they're going to address offensive line and specifically the interior of the offensive line. Wouldn't be surprised if they address defensive tackle. So that's, I think, and maybe cornerback too. Those are some of the areas I think they would address in the offseason.
Well, one thing too, who knows what's going to happen at the end of this year, but the foundation for this franchise has been built, and I see this team being competitive for at least another 5 years or so.
Hope so. Should be.
Yes.
The way they've managed their contracts, maybe not 5 years, but at least in the short term, Beane's been very good. I mean, locked up Josh Allen, but Beane's been very good about extending other guys, not just the big contracts like Trey White and Deion Dawkins and Josh Allen, but smaller extensions like the Poyers and the Hydes of the world, like locking in guys for 2-3 years down the road. So if you look at their cap situation, they don't have a lot of cap space, but they don't have a lot of big free agents next year, and they just re-signed or extended Taron Johnson. They don't really have a lot of big free agents next year. I got to look 2 years down the road, but they're in pretty good shape with the core of this team being under contract for at least a 2 to 3 year window.
How's your cap situation looking for next year as well?
I haven't checked it. It's not a lot. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to guess it's under 10 million, but I honestly haven't checked it in a while. But they will not have a ton of cap space in the offseason.
Okay. And that's a huge thing nowadays in sports is the cap is, especially in football. That's where it can make you or break you if you don't manage it reasonably well.
But again, you can create cap space.
That's
you can
true.
cut guys. Cole Beasley would be, again, is one of the guys on the list. Did they move away from Star Lotulelei? He's got a big cap number. So you can always create more space. You'll create dead money, which they don't really prefer to have, but they can move. If they released some guys off this roster, are they re-signing Hughes and Addison? So, they can create space in other ways, including releasing guys.
And I believe the TV contract sets in next year. I think the cap will be going up next year in 2022, I believe.
I don't remember if it's 22 or 23.
Okay.
I think it's 23, but I believe, I'm sure the cap's still going to go up. I mean, they had fans back. So it shouldn't be a flat cap. They just had revenue. Revenue is going to be back up this year. We're back to full stadiums. Yeah. So at least that will help the salary cap. I don't recall exactly when, but I thought it was 23. Don't quote me on that for the TV contract.
Okay. All right. No problem. And just a couple of Sabres questions, and then I'll finish it up with your New York Mets. Thoughts on the 21-22 Sabres so far? Who has been a surprise and maybe somebody who's been a disappointment for the Sabres so far?
Tage Thompson. Has been a huge surprise because, quite honestly, I think, for most Sabre fans, you were just looking at that as nothing came back from the O'Reilly trade. And why do they keep saying they're excited about Tage Thompson? He's having a really good season. And not only did you write him off, but then you heard, what? They're going to put him at center? That's a really important spot. And he's really flourished this year. He's scoring, he's creating, he's bringing some energy to the game. He's using that. He's got a really hard shot. He's getting power play time. He's really had that line has been very effective that they've put together. I think they've played well, those three guys. So I think he is at the top of the list. Disappointments. I was going to say Skinner's not really a surprise. We knew he could still score.
Oh yeah.
In his role, everything was just so bad with Kruger, but Jeff Skinner's scoring again, not at a 40-goal pace, but he's a 20 to 25 goal scorer regularly in this league, should be still. And so I wouldn't say surprise. I'm just kind of glad to see him scoring. Disappointments. I hate to do this, but Dahlin just still has some nights and some moments where you just kind of, I've tried not to I just try and look at Rasmus Dahlin as, can he be a 1-2 pairing, a top pairing defenseman in the National Hockey League, which does require a lot, by the way. Not, is this guy going to be one of the greatest defensemen, generational, unbelievable? That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid too. So I try not to do that, but I judge him against that role that he plays. And there are still, I know the other night he had a couple giveaways on the power play. There are still some times where he struggles in the defensive zone. Some of his decision-making, some of his lapses in coverage, some of his passes. I hate to say disappointment, because I don't think he's playing badly, but he has high expectations. So that's the only guy that I could think of. I just need him to be a little bit better, a little bit more consistent. And hopefully that'll come in time as he gets a little more experience and plays for Granato a little bit more.
I was going to say consistency summed it up. He's also still a young player, so I wouldn't give up on him quite yet. And also, have the Sabres thought about bringing somebody in to maybe work a little more with Dallin, like his defensive game?
Well, they have, I'm trying to think. He's still in the organization. Oh, this is terrible. This is one of those senior moments.
It
Dan
happens.
Girardi, who used to play in the NHL. You remember him, of course. Right?
Yes.
So he was on the coaching staff last season. I'm pretty sure he's still in the organization in an advisory capacity. And I thought, like, they gave him a lot of credit. Granato did after the coaching change, gave him a lot of credit for working with Dahlin and Jokiharju. Quite honestly, both of those guys struggled under Kruger, and I thought they were both playing better when Granato took over and Girardi came in and started working with them. So I think he's still in the organization. If he is, I'm sure he's still doing work with Rasmus Dahlin.
Okay.
And hopefully Pesic is helping him too. Pesic's a veteran defenseman. Pairing him with him, I think, can help a guy like Dahlin as well.
What's the status with Craig Anderson? Is he going to be out for a while?
Who knows? There's no timeline on him. Okay. So yeah, and look, they need him back. The goaltending has not been good. I mean, Aaron Dell has really struggled. They don't want to bring in UPL yet, up from Rochester, and so that puts a lot on Dustin Tokarski's plate. And look, he'll have some nights. He just had 2 or 3 good games in a row, and then not so good. He's not a guy who should be a number one goalie. He should be a guy who's a backup, plays 15, 20 games. I'm not sure that Craig Anderson can handle a big workload either at his age, but he is the best of the goalies. And, on a team that's going to give up chances, the style they play, trying to look to attack and be aggressive, they're going to leave their goalies out to dry sometimes. And I think Anderson is more equipped at handling nights like that and an onslaught, if that comes, than, say, Tokarski and Dell. So there's no word. I don't think there's an exact timeline from when he's going to be back, but they could use him back.
I was going to say the Sabres, I still don't think they'll make the playoffs this year, but from what I've seen so far, they're a heck of a lot more competitive and more entertaining to watch than they were last year.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. And honestly, that was my, you were asking the thoughts on the season, or I was like, the record's not good, but quite honestly, I wasn't really expecting much. I mean, we all thought they're going to be probably near the bottom of the conference and, not playing meaningful games after the first of the year, because, this is not the team that Kevin Adams envisions going forward. It's got some of the pieces, but a lot of the pieces they envision going forward are in Rochester or at the University of Michigan or in Europe, scattered all over the place, playing in juniors or college, what have you, or the minors. So for me, this season was all about, let me see the young guys develop. Tage Thompson, great. Cousins looks good. I like Asplund. I like Olofsson. I think Olofsson's become a better overall hockey player. I'd like to see Dahlin be more consistent. So that's what this season's about. It's watching those guys. And if eventually, the Quinns or the Paterkers or the Krebs come up, Casey Middlestad's supposed to return to the lineup tomorrow night. He was a big story going into the season. Could he handle one of those top 2 center spots? How would his development turn out? Hopefully he follows the Tage Thompson track here and really plays at a higher level, and that would really make things better for the Sabres too. So my thoughts on the season were always, how do the young guys look? Are they getting better? Do they have the right coach? Please play entertaining hockey. And they've played entertaining hockey. And even the other night, they gave up 7. They scored 4. I mean, they're scoring goals. If you're going to lose games, go 6-4, 5-4, 6-5, as opposed to, score a goal and try and hang on and lose 2-1. So they are more entertaining to watch. And I think that's honestly all I was looking to get out of this season. It had nothing to do about the record, because I was expecting them to miss the playoffs.
At least there seems to be stability with the team now with Granato as the head coach, and Adams looks like he's going to be there a while. So, and they do have some key young players in play on the roster and in Rochester. So it's just going to take a little more time to get this team back into the playoffs, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know what? I think I would expect more from them next season. You know, depending on the guy. I mean, there could be a number of different faces here next season. Power should be here. I think all those guys in Rochester will be here. Quinn, Krebs, Paterka, full time. Maybe UPL's handling the goaltending chores next season. So some of those prospects and guys they're counting on will start funneling in next season. So I think, I don't know about playoffs, Chris, who knows, but they should be much more competitive next season. And if it doesn't happen next season, you'd like to believe by 2 years down the road, they'd be a playoff team again.
Well, look what the Red Wings. It's taken them 5-6 years to get back to this level, and even Steve Yzerman, he's only been there back since 2019, and he's done quite a job getting the Wings back to respectability. But it's still a work in progress as well.
Yeah.
So
they're in a wild card spot today. I didn't even realize that. I was looking at the standings this morning. So, and they've been down for a long, long time. So,
well, the last 5 years. Yzerman got that goalie from Carolina, and Carolina basically gave him away. And he's still a rookie goalie, and he's been really good. And I'm just hoping the Wings can just continue to keep making progress. And I think your Sabres will get there as well at some point.
Yeah, I do. I feel good. You know, I think they do have the right coach. I like a lot of things that he says, that he believes in philosophically about how to coach the game, how to play the game. We had him on the other day, and he, you know, I forget, maybe we were talking about his aggressive style and all that. And he said something about how he can't envision, you know, playing hockey games and losing 2-1. Like, what's the point? So I think he's done a lot of positives. I think that a number of guys have developed and gotten better. Some young guys, some veteran guys. Again, Skinner's playing better. He's being used the right way, but he's playing better under Granato. So I think there's a lot to like about him. And like you said, Adams appears to be here and making some good moves on paper, but there's still so many parts that have to come together to make you feel a lot better about the Sabres and the future.
I think removing Jack Eichel was a big thing too. Getting him out of that organization and having him move on. And you got some good young players from Vegas on that trade.
Well, I'm never a fan of moving out the best player on your franchise. I'm sure he was unhappy. Quite honestly, if I were in his shoes, I'd be unhappy. I'd be tired of losing for 5 years, and I'd be tired of watching other teams get in the playoffs. I'd be tired of a dysfunctional organization. And that's so I have no gripes with how he might have been unhappy and wanted out, because I would have wanted out. If I was Reinhart, I would have wanted out. If I was him, there's no way I would have re-signed here. So to me, it's never a good idea to trade your best player. We'll see how it turns out.
Well, like I said, a fresh start too. I was going to say, what's the time frame for him to come back into the lineup for Vegas?
March, I think. I haven't seen anything recently, but I think at the time of the trade, and then he had the surgery right after that. And I thought I had read that they were talking. Well, I was going to say the shutdown's in February, so they were, I think, post-Olympic shutdown was the time frame.
Well, and the only good thing about the trade, I know how much you like Eichel, is they got him into the Western Conference. So it's not like you're going to be playing him 8-10 times a year like Boston or Detroit or whatever. So you're going to see him maybe once or twice a year. So and then the last question I wanted to ask you, Howard, I don't want to keep it too much longer, is New York Mets related, because I know you're a huge Mets fan. Thoughts on the current state of your New York Mets and signing former Tiger pitcher Max Scherzer to a monster deal, $43 million a year, and losing shortstop, second baseman Baez to my Detroit Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, I love Scherzer. You know, I'm not a fan of paying a pitcher $43 million. It's not my money. It's Steve Cohen's money. I'll do my best to help him out. I'll buy tickets to a couple games next season. Love Scherzer. Just the guy is a battler. He's an amazing pitcher. He is a workhorse. You don't have to worry about pitch counts and innings limits. You give him the ball, he's going to go out there and give you everything he's got, as much as you want him out there. I mean, just, you know, since he had been in Washington, seeing him as often as we would as Mets fans against the Nationals, that guy, so hard to hit against. And so I love the pickup. Don't get me wrong. I love the pickup. I just wasn't sure about $43 million for a non-position player, but he's great. They needed him. Their rotation fell apart last year. They lose Syndergaard. Doesn't look like Stroman is re-signing. And really, you know, last year, Taiwan Walker tailed off. Carrasco was injured. They had a lot of problems in the rotation after DeGrom and Stroman. So they desperately needed Scherzer. And him and DeGrom at the top, it's a great 1-2 punch to have. I'm not surprised Baez is gone. They brought in a guy. They just signed somebody who could play second or third base for them. So he'll fill one of those two spots. Yeah, I think it's been a good offseason. Scherzer's the big signing, but they brought in some infield help. They brought in outfield help. They brought in Marte, right? And it sounds like they're still going to try and address the bullpen a little bit, which they could probably need another arm or two. It's been a good offseason for them. I'm the typical Mets fan. I'm not like sitting here talking world championship. But I honestly thought they were good enough to be in the playoffs last year, and a lot of things happened. Some of them were injuries. Some guys had awful years, Conforto among them, and it took Lindor a while to get going. So I'm hoping for better things. I like the signings. I think it's made them overall a better baseball team, and now we'll see who they decide to use as manager.
Do you think Francisco Lindor will have an MVP type season next year? You think he'll be more comfortable?
Full season next year. I mean, he was for a while there. He was Mendoza line territory. And, you talked earlier about the contract with Josh Allen. And I'm going to guess part of that was Lindor getting a massive contract and playing in New York. Now, granted, it could be worse. He could be with the Yankees, where he'd get raked over the coals even more than he would with the Mets. But, it was a tough first half plus of the season for him. And I think he settled in after that. So I would hope his numbers get back to where they were in Cleveland. MVP is asking a lot, but whatever. If his numbers get back to where he was, the Mets will be all the better for it. I would just like to see him be able to play well for a full season, because that hurt. He was one of the many guys that, when they were struggling before all the pitching injuries and their offense was struggling, Lindor was a big reason why they had those issues on offense.
What do you expect from the Mets in 2022? Do you think there will be at least a wild card contender?
Yeah, absolutely. Better be a wild card contender. They should be in the playoffs. Like I said, if some of the bats come back the way they were with the additions, with the pitching, we'll see how the rotation fills out. Yeah, I do expect them. I know Atlanta is still going to be the team to beat in the division. The way they played down the last month or two of the season and then in the playoffs, that's the Atlanta Braves team I expected. And a lot of us were wondering, where the heck are they up to August when they turned it on? I think they're still the team to beat in the division. But the Mets should give them a run, and at the very least, you'd think second place in a wild card team next year.
Mets have any candidates for manager and general manager yet?
Well, they got their general manager.
Okay.
And he was I just saw a quote from him today. I guess they're going to start they have a list of candidates for manager. I think they were going to start interviewing in about a week or so. I don't recall seeing any particular names matched up with the job, but they're not in a big rush. They had to get their GM in place, and I think they had to get some of these signings done before the lockout. Baseball tonight at 11:59 p.m., if there's a lockout, it shuts down, and that stops free agency. So I think that was the important thing. Get the GM in place, fix your baseball operations, get some contracts done before possibly a shutdown of the sport. Then they can interview the manager.
Do you really think they can afford another shutdown? Because I know that
I don't think they'll shut. Yeah, I don't think they're going to miss playing time. I think this is, hopefully it's just, a sense of urgency is created. If we're going to, we're shutting down the sport, which means free agents can't sign. We were still months from spring training and workouts. So I don't think it'll go that far. It is baseball. They are kind of stupid when it comes to labor. So, but I think this is maybe more of a hope that this will just kind of push the negotiations along by throwing in a little urgency and saying, okay, we're locked down. We'll see if it works.
Because I'm hoping, because the Taggers, the 2022 Taggers, I expect to compete for a wild card in the American League with the young talent they have assembled, and then getting Erod from Boston and now Baez from the Mets. I really expect the Taggers to be an 85 to 90 win team next year.
Well, you'd like to believe baseball wouldn't be foolish enough to shut the sport down. It just
I hope
wouldn't make
not.
any sense. It's just not it's not a good idea. They have so many other problems they're dealing with. A lot of things that are wrong with that sport. The absolute last thing you need to do is lock it down and shut people out. It would be a terrible move on their part.
Definitely. And I'm going to let you, just one last thing I wanted to ask you is, where can my audience again find you on social media, and when you and Jeremy are on the radio in the mornings?
WGR 550. We have lots of Canadian listeners. I love that. We definitely have a Southern Ontario presence, and of course the Odyssey app. and streaming online at the website. So you have many different ways to listen to us if you so desire. Me personally, I'd pick music, but that's just me. But if you want to listen to us, you can do any of that or just listen to us on demand on our website.
Okay. I was going to say, Howard, I really thank you for coming on my podcast for the second time. The first time was 7 months ago. I'm like, where the heck is the 7 months gone?
It's flown by.
Oh, yes, definitely. So, but like I said, I really appreciate it. And hopefully maybe after the Super Bowl or in the new year, we can maybe talk a little more on New York Mets baseball as well.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me again, Chris. I hope you're doing well.
I am. Thank you so much, Howard. Have a great day, and good luck to your Bills on Monday night against those Patriots.
We'll take it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast today with Howard Simon from WGR 550 in Buffalo. You can catch the Howard and Jeremy show Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WGR 550 in Buffalo. And I really appreciate him talking about the Bills, previewing the Patriots game, and talking a little bit about the Sabres and the New York Mets as well. Just to let you guys know, I'm just going to show a little clip of a preview of the Bills Patriots game this Monday night in Orchard Park.
Get ready for an epic AFC East lightsaber duel that goes down on center stage Monday Night Football in Buffalo. The Bills taking on the New England Patriots with division supremacy on the line. Bills Mafia feeling like they're watching Rise of Skywalker. Didn't Vader flip and turn good and throw that guy down the hole? How is he still alive? Good thing for them, they may have the Kylo Ren needed to take him out.
4th and 2 on the boot. Jenkins is waiting with the pass. Is caught by Dawson Knox, who has his second Thanksgiving night touchdown.
Josh Allen bounced back from his last Jedi performance last week on Turkey Day, throwing for 4 TDs, a rating over 115.
Screens it to Breida, working inside with the speed to the end zone for a Buffalo touchdown. Touchdown pass 4 on the night for Josh Allen.
Kylo needed help, though. Guys like Finn, in this analogy played by Stephon Diggs. He scored versus the Saints.
Allen looking at Diggs, going at Diggs. Diggs got it. Buffalo touchdown, Stephon Diggs.
He typically draws the opponent's top corner, so that's where Captain Phasma comes in.
Deflected and intercepted in the end zone. J.C. Jackson is Mr. Pick.
Now you know why I went with Finn and not Ray. J.C. Jackson is one of the best corners in the league, so the Jackson-Diggs one-on-one will be just as fun a showdown to watch as anything you see on a movie screen.
And it's intercepted along the sideline. J.C. Jackson.
But New England also has to worry about Dawson Knox. Has to be Chewy, I guess. And he came back from injury and immediately made an impact.
To the goal line and in for Dawson Knox and a Buffalo touchdown. TD number 6 on the season for the tight end who continues to emerge.
The Bills are a pass first, pass second, and pass third kind of team, which plays right into New England's defensive strength. They had few issues with Ryan Tannehill in Week 12. Their rankings against the pass in elite territory.
And picked off. And they're going to mark out of bounds J.C. Jackson, but it is New England's ball.
Not too many teams can say their pass defense is better than the Patriots, but the Bills are one of them. In fact, no team has been better against the pass. They dominated the Saints passing game.
Shot there and a pick on cue. Jordan Poyer's got this one.
And they've only allowed 250-plus yards twice all season.
And that pass is intercepted. Micah Hyde's going to take it to the end zone.
Look, there's always a down moment in Star Wars movies. Rebels always lose key players at some point. And finding out Trey Day was done for the year was like watching Ben turn off his saber. But New England does still have to try and hold off their pass rush, which also has been one of the best in football. 2 more sacks to their total on Thanksgiving.
Simeon, nothing open, and he will go down as Oliver's had 3 good plays in a row.
Mac Jones, though, usually gets enough time to cook up some cheese. Pat's O-line giving up around 2 QB takedowns a game.
Rush up the middle. Jones tripped up by Kevin Byard.
Jones used his protection last week to put up 300-plus yards, close to 10 per attempt, rating over 120. Kid's looking like the coolest apprentice since Maul.
Jones up in the air. It's caught. Bourne touchdown. born ready.
Jones has shown he can be the lead man when needed and be the game manager when that's needed. Reminds me of someone else that used to play in New England. It went Anakin to Luke, right?
Deep shot Jones. It's hauled in. Jacoby Myers with the grab.
Look, put all my stupid analogies aside, you've got probably the top 2 pass defenses in football.
Over the middle, intercepted. Jordan Poyer intercepted. Mayfield has it picked off by Kyle Duggar.
Against 2 of the best young QBs in the NFL with a lot on the line.
To the end zone. Diggs has it. Touchdown.
Jones. Deep ball. And somehow they blew the coverage. It's Bourne to the end zone.
Passing games on both sides will be center stage, making the run games the X factors. And unless you have Jonathan Taylor or the King, the Bills aren't easy to run on.
4th and 2, and they will go for it with a run. No chance. Mario Addison, who had a sack earlier, comes up with a tackle for loss here.
Pats didn't run a lot last week, but Pats fans know better than anyone. They have 2 guys that can lead the way on any given week.
Harris runs into Trent Brown and keeps going for the touchdown. Nobody can stop him. From the 6, it's a pitch. Good cut. Stevenson steamrolls in. Touchdown, New England.
The Bills, on the other hand, don't usually run too much.
Singletary to the left, cuts it up. Good hard run here by Singletary. Through another tackle. Still on his feet. 16-yard powerful run by an inspired Devin Singletary.
And Josh Allen, of course, gets involved here as well.
Allen's looking for him. A way out. And he's going to do it with his legs. Knocked down, but a first down at the 38-yard line for Josh Allen.
And that's the question. Do they adapt to their opponent's strengths and weaknesses? New England gave up 270 rushing yards to a kingless Titans team on almost 7 yards per carry.
And Hilliard's got speed. He could go all the way. Touchdown.
And more evidence of how good this game could be. Both teams' offenses are great on 3rd and in the red zone.
End zone. At the goal line. Touchdown.
Off the fake. Throws. Touchdown.
Okay, easy MVP.
And both are great on 3rd down defensively.
3rd and 10 for Simeon. Pressured, hit as he threw, and incomplete.
On 3rd and 3, calling the plays for Tennessee. Tannehill. And he backs into the rush. And guess who? Matt Judon.
All right, leave your movie reviews in the comments section, aka your predictions. We'll put our tomatoes on the screen. And thanks for putting up with that. I get bored sometimes, all right?
Anyways, guys, that clip was a courtesy of the NFL. The Patriots Bills matchups Monday night, 8:15 from Highmark Stadium in Buffalo Orchard Park. CDP's prediction is New England wins 16-13. I think the weather might be a factor with the winds in Buffalo, and I just think New England is right now a hotter and more consistent team than Buffalo. And you always got to go with Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels over majority of coaching staffs. I really think the Patriots have the edge in the coaching staff. I think their defense is a little bit better than Buffalo's, and the Patriots are a well-coached, smart team. They don't make mistakes. The Bills have turned the ball over, made some interceptions, and they haven't been consistent as well. The Bills might have a little more talent than the Patriots, but overall, I think the Patriots are a smarter football team. I think the Patriots are going to win this game 16-13. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. And just to let you know, my next podcast, I can talk, next Live with CDP podcast is going to be tomorrow, December 2nd, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 on the West Coast. My guest will be Rick Zamperin, a longtime radio personality from 900 CHML in Hamilton, and he was also the play-by-play radio voice of the Hamilton Tiger Cats for 7 years. Rick's going to come on and talk about his career in radio, 20-year plus career in radio, and working in the Hamilton market, and also his time as a Tiger Cats play-by-play announcer, and also get some thoughts on the CFL Eastern Final between the Toronto Argonauts and Hamilton Tiger Cats this Sunday afternoon at BMO Field, and also the Western Final with Saskatchewan taking on the defending Grey Cup champion Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Winnipeg on Sunday afternoon. I'm picking Toronto and Winnipeg to meet in the Grey Cup this year. But we'll see what happens. Anything can happen as well. I hope everybody can tune into that podcast. And also, guys, just before I wrap it up, I normally do this as well. Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded onto Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn as well. And also, StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP podcasts. And also, guys, TikTok. You can follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP, on TikTok. I'm on Twitter as well, at Chris D. Palme. That's at Chris D. Palme on Twitter as well. And like I said, guys, I'm looking forward to my podcast tomorrow. Again, it's going to be at 4:00 with Rick Zamperin from 900 CHML in Hamilton, and we'll talk about his radio career there, and also some Tiger Cats football and some CFL playoff action this weekend, which I'm looking forward to. Again, I'm predicting Toronto and Winnipeg to meet in the Grey Cup this year. Anyways, guys, I just want to say thank you again to Howard Simon from WGR 550 for coming on my podcast for a second time. And we'll see what happens with the Bills and Patriots this Monday night at 8:15. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a podcast. Thank you to everybody that watches this on my YouTube channel, Facebook Live, Twitter, and later on my 9 audio platforms as well. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 4:00 for another edition of Live with CDP podcast with guest Rick Zamperin from 900 CHML in Hamilton. I hope you all have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4:00. Thank you again for watching or listening to Live with CDP podcast.